My name is Victoria, and I'm 28 years old now. What I'm about to tell you is one of the most painful yet ultimately redemptive chapters of my life. It's a story about betrayal, heartbreak, deception, and finally, justice served by the universe itself in the most unexpected way. Let me take you back to where it all started. Back to when I was young, hopeful, and deeply in love with the wrong person. I met Derek when I was 22 years old. I had just graduated from college with a degree in marketing and had landed an entry-level position at a mid-sized tech company in Portland, Oregon. Derek worked in the finance department, and from the moment I saw him across the company cafeteria, I was completely smitten. He was charming, ambitious, and had this confident way about him that made everyone in the room gravitate toward him. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Derek was perfect, attentive, funny, and genuinely interested in everything I had to say. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Within a year, he proposed. I was over the moon. I thought I had found my soulmate, my partner for life, my happily ever after. We got married in a beautiful ceremony at the Riverside Country Club in June, surrounded by both our families. Derek's family, his parents Margaret and Thomas, and his younger sister Rebecca, welcomed me with open arms. They treated me like I was already part of the family. His father walked me down the aisle when my own father couldn't make the trip. I felt like I had won the lottery, not just in finding Derek, but in gaining a family that genuinely loved me. The first 2 years of marriage were wonderful. Derek and I talked about our dreams, our future, and most importantly, our desire to start a family. I had always wanted children. I wanted to experience motherhood, to raise strong, kind human beings, to pass down my values and love to the next generation. Derek felt the same way. We started trying for a baby almost immediately. Months passed. Nothing happened. We went to doctors, underwent tests, tried different approaches. The doctors couldn't find anything definitively wrong with either of us, but somehow, pregnancy just wasn't happening. It was emotionally draining. Every month I would feel that familiar disappointment. Every negative pregnancy test felt like a small death. But we were a team. Derek held my hand through every appointment, every disappointment, or so I thought. In our 4th year of marriage, Derek's job became increasingly demanding. He was being groomed for a senior management position, and he threw himself into his work completely. He was often at the office late into the evening. Sometimes he didn't come home until after I was already in bed. I missed him. I missed us. But I understood that this was important to him, so I supported him. I would leave dinner in the oven. I would text him encouraging messages. I was the supportive wife, standing by her ambitious husband. What I didn't know was that Derek wasn't working late. He was seeing someone else. Her name was Natasha. She was a paralegal in the legal department, according to what I would later learn. She was blonde, thin, and apparently everything I wasn't. Derek didn't tell me about her. He didn't confess immediately out of guilt or conscience. He got caught when he accidentally left his work email open on our home computer, and I saw messages between them. Intimate messages. Messages that made my stomach turn and my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. I remember the exact moment I read those emails. I was sitting in our kitchen, in our nice suburban home in the Tigard neighborhood. The morning light was streaming through the windows. My coffee was getting cold, and my entire world was collapsing. When Derek came home that evening, I confronted him immediately. Instead of denying it, instead of lying or making excuses, he did something worse. He confessed. And then he told me that Natasha was pregnant. I don't remember what I said or did in that moment. I remember feeling like I was drowning, like someone had wrapped their hands around my throat and squeezed. All those months of trying, all those doctor's appointments, all that hope and longing, and Derek had gotten another woman pregnant in what I could only assume was a matter of weeks, maybe months. But here's the thing about trauma and shock. Sometimes our brains protect us from feeling the full weight of it all at once. I was numb. I was devastated, but in a way that felt distant, like it was happening to someone else. And then Derek did something that in hindsight, I should have seen as a giant red flag about his character. He asked me to forgive him. Not because he truly felt remorse, not because he wanted to change. He asked me to forgive him because he said he loved me. He said that Natasha meant nothing. He said that I was his wife, his partner, his future. He cried. He told me he didn't want to lose me. And in my brokenness, In my desperation to not lose my marriage, to not lose the family I had so carefully built, I said yes. I forgave him. It was one of the worst decisions I ever made. For the next 2 years, I lived in a carefully constructed hell of my own making. Derek's daughter, yes, the baby was a girl, and yes, it was confirmed to be his biological child, was born in the spring. Her name was Emma, and she was absolutely beautiful, and she became the center of the universe for Derek's entire family. His parents doted on Emma. They bought her expensive gifts. They wanted to include her in every family gathering, every holiday, every milestone celebration. And because Derek wanted to maintain his relationship with his daughter, which I understood, Natasha became a permanent fixture in our lives. Natasha came to birthday parties. She came to Thanksgiving dinners. She came to family photos. She was always there, always smiling, always present. I watched as Derek's family, the family that I had loved and been embraced by, treated Natasha like she was one of them, like she was family, like she was almost Derek's wife. And people began to assume that she was. I can't tell you how many times I would go somewhere with Derek and his family, and someone would look at Derek and Natasha together and assume they were a couple. I would watch their faces register confusion when Derek introduced me as his wife. I became the third wheel in my own marriage. The worst moment, and I mean this with complete sincerity, was Emma's first birthday party. Derek's parents had planned an elaborate celebration at their home. They hired a caterer, set up decorations, invited extended family and friends. It was beautiful and lavish. During the party, Derek's mother Margaret approached me. She was smiling, but there was something in her expression that made my stomach clench. "Victoria, sweetie," she said, putting her hand on my arm. "Could you do me a favor? Could you take a family photo for us? We want one of Derek, Emma, Natasha, Thomas, and me. The whole family." The whole family. She had just excluded me from the whole family. I was standing right there, and in her mind I was not part of the picture. I was not essential enough to include. I was the help. I was the one holding the camera. I remember my hands shaking as I took the camera from her. I remember positioning them in front of the large window in their living room, the golden afternoon light making everything look like a magazine photo. I remember pressing the button to capture that moment. Derek's daughter in the center, his parents on either side, and Natasha right there next to Derek, looking like she belonged there more than I ever did. When I handed the camera back to Margaret, I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I locked the door and cried silently, pressing my face into a towel so no one would hear me. That was the moment I decided that I was done. Not done with trying, not done with hoping. I was done with Derek. I was done with a marriage that had become a mockery. I was done with a man who loved another woman enough to bring her into our lives, but had never been able to give me the child I desperately wanted. Filing for divorce was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the best decisions of my life. Derek fought me on it initially. His parents cried and begged me to reconsider. Rebecca even came to my apartment and tried to convince me that I was throwing away a good marriage. But I had nothing left to give. I was empty. I was broken. I needed to save myself. The divorce proceedings took several months. Derek's lawyer tried to make things difficult, tried to claim that I had been unfaithful, tried to paint me as the villain in our marriage. But the evidence was clear. The emails were there, the timeline was there, the judge was sympathetic to my situation. I walked away from that marriage with some of our shared assets, my dignity, and a determination to rebuild my life. Those early months after the divorce were brutal. I threw myself into my work. I had actually been promoted just before the divorce proceedings began, which was a silver lining I desperately needed. I worked 60-hour weeks. I went to the gym obsessively. I went to therapy, which I should have started years earlier. I slowly began to feel like myself again. And then, about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I met someone who changed everything. His name is Julian, and he walked into my life in the most ordinary way possible, at a coffee shop near my office. I was ordering my usual cold brew, and I was behind him in line. He ordered the same thing, and turned around with a smile, commenting about how we clearly had excellent taste. Julian is 5 years younger than me, which initially made me hesitant, but he was mature, genuinely kind, and he didn't know anything about my past. He didn't know Derek. He didn't know my failures or my heartbreak. With Julian, I could start completely fresh. We dated for 3 months before things became serious. He was patient with me, understanding of my need to take things slowly, respectful of my emotional needs. He listened to my story, the whole story, without judgment. He told me that what happened to me was not my fault, that Derek's infidelity said nothing about my worth as a woman or a partner. 3 months into dating Julian, I became pregnant. I couldn't believe it. After all those years trying with Derek, after all the disappointment and heartbreak, here I was, pregnant after just a few months with Julian. The first test I took showed 2 pink lines, and I sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes just staring at it, tears streaming down my face. When I told Julian, he was overjoyed. He picked me up and spun me around. He told me that he loved me, that he couldn't wait to be a father. He was everything Derek never was. 9 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I named her Sophie, and she was the most perfect thing I had ever created. I felt something I had never felt before. Pure, unconditional love that had nothing to do with anyone else's actions or choices. She was mine. She was a miracle. She was everything I had dreamed about during those dark years of infertility. Julian was there for every moment. He cut the umbilical cord. He cried when he held her. He woke up with me during the middle of the night feedings. He was the kind of father that every child deserves, and that I had always hoped Derek would be. 2 weeks after Sophie was born, I was sitting on my couch, nursing my newborn daughter, when Julian came home from work. He was excited about something. He showed me his phone. He had posted a photo of Sophie on Facebook. A beautiful newborn photo, professional and perfect. He had tagged me in it. I was happy about it. This was my daughter, and I wanted to celebrate her arrival with everyone I cared about. I scrolled through the comments, reading the well wishes and congratulations from friends and family. But then, my phone rang. It was Derek's sister, Rebecca. Victoria? Her voice sounded strange, tight with emotion. "Hi, Rebecca," I said cautiously. "Is everything okay?" There was a pause on the line, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. "I'm so hurt that you didn't tell me that you could actually get pregnant. We all thought, that maybe you were the infertile one, that maybe the reason you and Derek couldn't have children together was because something was wrong with you." I didn't know what to say. The implication of her words was hanging between us. If I could get pregnant with Julian, then maybe I could have gotten pregnant with Derek all those years. Maybe the problem wasn't me. Maybe the problem was him. "Rebecca, I started to say, but she interrupted me. "Don't you think Derek deserves to know? Don't you think he deserves to know that maybe all those tests, all those doctors, all that heartbreak, maybe it was his fault? Don't you think you should have told him that you were pregnant?" After she hung up, I sat in stunned silence. I had never thought about it that way. I had been so caught up in my own pain and my own healing that I hadn't considered the implications of my sudden fertility. Derek had raised Emma as his daughter for the first year of her life. He loved her. She called him Daddy. But what if? No, I wouldn't go down that road. It wasn't my responsibility to tell Derek anything. He had made his choices. He had destroyed our marriage. Whatever happened next was on him, not me. I learned later, through a chain of conversations that somehow made their way back to me, that Derek had indeed taken a paternity test, and the results were shocking. Emma was not his biological daughter. The timeline of Derek and Natasha's relationship apparently wasn't quite what he thought it was. Natasha had been dating another man when she slept with Derek. She wasn't entirely sure who Emma's father was, but she had chosen to let Derek believe Emma was his because she had feelings for him, because she thought he would be a good father, because she believed that eventually Derek might leave me and choose her. She was a manipulator. She was deceptive. She was everything that Derek deserved, frankly. Derek had a complete breakdown. His parents were devastated. The family structure that had seemed so solid when Emma was born had crumbled entirely. Derek's mother reached out to me, not to apologize, but to ask if I had known, if I had suspected, if I should have told Derek earlier. The guilt hit me like a physical force. Should I have told him? I had suspected, in those early days with Julian, that maybe Derek wasn't the infertile one. But it wasn't my place to tell him. It wasn't my responsibility. He had made his bed. He had to lie in it. But Derek had taken care of a child that wasn't his for an entire year. He loved her. He believed she was his. And now she was gone from his life. And I was responsible for that, in a way. If I had told him earlier, if I had said, "Derek, I can get pregnant," which means maybe the problem was you all along, He could have gotten a paternity test sooner. He could have saved himself a year of loving a child that wasn't his. It took me a long time to process my feelings about all of this. I went back to therapy. I talked through my guilt, my anger, my sense of justice. My therapist helped me understand that while my actions, or rather my inaction, had consequences for Derek, they were consequences he brought upon himself through his choices. Victoria, my therapist said during one session, Derek chose to cheat on you. Derek chose to get another woman pregnant. Derek chose to bring that woman into your life. None of those choices were made by you. The only choice you made was to not tell him something that wasn't your responsibility to tell him. She was right. I wasn't responsible for Derek's life. I wasn't responsible for his mistakes or their fallout. I was only responsible for myself and my daughter. Meanwhile, my life with Julian continued to flourish. We moved in together. Sophie grew into a beautiful, intelligent, happy little girl. Julian was an involved, loving father. He taught Sophie to read before she started kindergarten. He coached her soccer team. He made her laugh. He was everything a father should be. 2 years after Sophie was born, Julian proposed. We got married in a small ceremony with only close friends and family. It was intimate and genuine, nothing like the grand production of my first wedding, but it felt right. It felt true. It felt like a marriage built on genuine love and respect, not on passion and fantasy. Interestingly, Derek's mother Margaret reached out to me before the wedding. She called me one afternoon while I was at work, asking if we could meet for coffee. I was hesitant, but I agreed. When we met at a small cafe downtown, Margaret looked different from how I remembered her. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had been through something difficult, which I supposed she had. Victoria, she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup, I want to apologize. I wasn't expecting that. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened, she continued, about how I treated you, about how I made you feel less than, how I prioritized another woman's relationship with Derek over your marriage, and I'm ashamed of that. You were my daughter-in-law, and I didn't treat you with the respect and love that you deserved. I didn't know what to say. Apologies don't fix the past. They don't undo the pain. But they mean something. They acknowledge that wrong was done. Thank you for saying that, I finally said. That means more than you know. I also want to tell you that I'm proud of you, Margaret said, reaching across the table to put her hand on mine. I'm proud of how you've built a life for yourself. I'm proud of your daughter, and I'm proud that you found genuine happiness. You deserve that. I cried that day. Not angry tears, but tears of release. I had been carrying around so much hurt for so long, and in that moment, some of it lifted. Just before my wedding to Julian, I reached out to Derek's sister Rebecca. I wanted to invite her to the wedding. It felt important to maintain that family connection despite everything that had happened. Rebecca and I had been friends before all the drama, and I didn't want Derek's mistakes to erase that friendship. Rebecca accepted the invitation. She came to the wedding with her husband and their 2 young children. She gave us a generous gift, and afterward, she hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. The only family member who didn't come was Derek, but I didn't expect him to. We moved in different circles now. We had different lives. His presence or absence didn't affect my happiness. As for Derek himself, I learned through the family grapevine that he was struggling. He was in therapy, trying to process the betrayal and the heartbreak of losing Emma. He had moved to Seattle, presumably to get a fresh start. He had gotten a new job and was, according to Margaret, trying to rebuild his life. I felt sad for him, I did. But I also knew that he would be okay. He was resilient in the way that people often are. He would eventually move on, find someone new, build a new life. And maybe in that new life, he would be a better man. Maybe he would learn the lessons that his marriage to me should have taught him. Julian and I bought a house with a big backyard for Sophie to play in. We have a dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit. We have a garden that Julian tends to with meticulous care. We have a life built on partnership and genuine love. A few months ago, I ran into Derek at a grocery store. It was awkward. We recognized each other from a distance, and he came over to say hello. He looked better than I expected, healthier, happier. He told me that he was doing well, that he had been in therapy, that he had realized a lot of things about himself that he needed to work on. I'm really happy for you, Victoria, he said, and I believed him. You look happy. I am, I told him. I really am. And then he asked about Sophie. He wanted to know if she was a good kid, if Julian was treating her well, if I was satisfied with how my life had turned out. And I answered him honestly. I told him that Sophie was the light of my life, that Julian was an incredible father and husband, that I had never been happier. He nodded, and I could see something in his expression, relief maybe, or resignation, like he was glad that despite everything that had happened, I had found genuine happiness, like he was glad that his betrayal hadn't ruined my life, even though it had nearly done exactly that. Take care of yourself, I told him, and I meant it. I didn't wish him harm. I didn't carry anger toward him anymore. I had moved on. As for Emma, the little girl who Derek thought was his, she's with her biological father now. From what I understand through the family, she's happy and healthy. Her mother, Natasha, apparently finally got some real therapy and worked through her own issues. She's become a better mother because of it. And Derek, to his credit, maintains a relationship with Emma, even though she's not biologically his. He sees her once a month. He loves her the way a father should, despite not being her biological parent. That's something beautiful that came out of all this pain. Emma gets to have a father figure who loves her, and Derek gets to have a relationship with a child he loves. It's not what anyone planned, but it's genuine. I tell people my story, not for validation or sympathy, but because I believe there's an important lesson in it. Life has a way of serving justice, but not always in the way we expect. I didn't have to tell Derek anything. I wasn't responsible for revealing that I could get pregnant, which was the key piece of information that led to him discovering Emma wasn't his biological child. The universe took care of that all on its own. What I learned is that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living well. It's building a genuine happy life with people who truly love you and respect you. It's raising a strong daughter and being present for her. It's finding a partner who chooses you every single day, not just in grand romantic gestures, but in the small daily choices that constitute a real marriage. Derek chose infidelity. He chose to bring another woman into our marriage. He chose to prioritize his desire for immediate gratification over his commitment to me. And those choices had consequences that he had to live with. But I didn't have to be the instrument of his punishment. Life did that for him. I'm Victoria, and this is my story. And I'm grateful for every moment of the life I've built, because it proved to me that sometimes the best thing you can do when someone breaks your heart is to simply move on and build something better. Because in the end, success really is the best revenge. The end. For updates on Victoria's life and her continued journey, follow dramatic revenge stories for more compelling true tales of karma, betrayal, and redemption.